Now in the previous example I have shown you that while deleting a row or while updating some value in a row, we are going to violate referential constraints. For example, if you see this table, let us say this is the department table and it is the employee table. Now in the employee table we are going to have the information about which department each employee is working in. For example, if you see this, employee 1 is working in department number 3, right? Now what happens if I delete this department number 3 is, referential integrity constraint is going to fail. Or what happens if I try to update it, then again referential integrity constraint is going to fail. Therefore, two main things where referential integrity constraint fails is, one is either insertion or other is while updating. Therefore, whenever you do this, you are supposed to tell the database system that it has to perform certain actions to still maintain the referential integrity, right? So it is always important that you maintain the referential integrity somehow. Now there are various ways you can maintain the referential integrity. One way is, whenever you change this, let us say you are deleting it, right? When I delete it, if I set the particular value to null, then it is nothing but updating it to null, right? So set null is the query which is, or the statement which we are going to use. Set null is the phrase, which means if I delete this, if I set this one to null, that is called set null. If I update this, if I set this one to null, that is called set null, right? Or the other option is, if I delete this, now since the department has been deleted, if you delete all the employees from the department, then it is called as cascading, which means the delete is propagating here, right? And the other one is, let us say you are changing this department number 3 to department number, let's say 10. Then if you put department number 10 here also, that is also called as cascading. Whatever you do here, if I do here also, that is called cascading, right? And if I set null whenever I modify, that is called set null, right? And the other one is set default, which means if I delete this 3, if I for all the employees who are belonging to department 3, if I set a department as default, right, that is called as set default. So we have these three options. Now let's see how to implement them. Okay, let's see the theory here. What is referential constraints is, this allows us to further describe the relationship between the referential column and the object it references by attaching a referential triggered action to the foreign key. So what they are trying to say is, whenever you are trying to update the key to which someone else is referring, then what happens is the referential integrity is going to fail. But still, if you want to maintain that relationship, right, it is further describing the relationship, which means if you still want to maintain the relationship even after deleting or updating, then we are going to attach some referential triggered action to the foreign key. So where are you going to attach this action? To the foreign key, which means whenever you are creating a table and whenever you say that there is a foreign key, then there itself you can say that this is the action you need to take whenever referential integrity is going to fail, or later you can again update it, right? Okay, let me just give you an example and see and show you how it works. There are actually three actions that can be done, either on delete or on update. So one action is set null. Set null means whenever you update or delete some, let's say, department number, if you are going to set that particular department in employee table to null, that is called as set null. And the other one is set default. Set default means whenever you change in the department table, if you are going to replace that value in the employee table by a default value, that is called as set default. And the other one is set cascade. Set cascade means whenever you change some value or delete some value, right, if you change or delete the value in the employee table also, that is called as cascading, which means the change is going to propagate. Okay, now let's see some examples and the queries there. Now how are you going to specify it is, see, one is while creating the table itself, you can specify what is the action you need to do whenever referential integrity fails. For example, create table employee. Now you are going to create the table employee in which department number references, let's say, department ID of department. So here this one is defining that this particular department number is referring to the department number of the department. Now after this you can extend it and write the triggered action, right? So here if you write the action, then it will behave appropriately whenever there is a violation. Now how to write it is, just see this one, same thing, I am just writing the same thing. If you observe it, the same thing I'll take from here. I'll just show you how to modify it for the set null first. So if you want to set null as the default behavior, then what we are going to do is, whenever department ID references department ID of department, then on delete, which means on delete of anything here, then you are going to set null. You are going to set that particular value here as null. That is the meaning of it, right? Or on update set null, which means whenever you update something here, then you are going to set null here, right? For example, you just see this, delete from department where department ID equal to 1. Let us assume that you have given this statement while creating the table. Now you are trying to delete department number 1, right? What happens here is, see, delete from department table, department equal to 1 means this particular thing will be deleted, this entire row. Now who will get affected because of this? In the employee table, the employees who belong to department number 1 will get affected, which means because of the presence of an employee who belongs to department number 1, now the integrity constraint fails, because there is no longer department number 1 here, and you are showing that this employee is present there, and because of that foreign key constraint, this one should definitely be present there, otherwise it cannot exist here. Now how are you going to maintain that relationship? Now here you are saying that on delete set null. Because of that statement, you have to set this one to null. This is what is going to happen, which means while creating the table, if you give the triggered action as set null, then whenever you delete an entry there, for the corresponding entry here you are going to put null. Now this is how you are going to see that referential integrity is maintained. Now see this, whatever values are present here will all be present there. Now again the referential integrity constraint is maintained. Now let us say you are updating, update department, set department ID equal to 7 where department ID equal to 6, which means here wherever department ID was 6 is now made 7. Now who will get affected? All the employees who are present in department number 6, which means this is where you are going to get affected. Now how to deal with that? This one you have already declared while creating the table. On update set null will be taken here. Why? You are actually updating, not deleting, right? Therefore on update you are going to set null means this one will also be made null. Now again if you see this, integrity is maintained, referential integrity. Whatever values you see here, all the values will be present there. Got it? Okay. Now the other default action is, or the other action you might have to take is set default. Now what does set default say? See this? So how to write it is the same thing, department number, and you are supposed to define what is the default value if something happens, if the referential integrity fails. Now let us say here the default value I am using is 3. Now you are just defining that this department ID of the employee is going to refer to the department ID of the department. Along with that you are saying that on delete set default and on update set default. Let's see what happens here. Now assume that on this table this one is executed, this statement, delete from department where department ID equal to 2, which means from here you are going to delete this particular row. Now who will get affected? All the employees who are depending on or who are present in department number 2, which means here. So this particular row is going to get affected. Now how are you going to deal with that? Here you have mentioned that on delete set default, right? And what is the default here? 3. Therefore you are going to write here as 3. Got it? Now what if you try to delete 3 itself? When you try to delete 3, now if you try to execute it, this 3 will be deleted, and whoever got affected, again if they are going to set the default as 3, then it is never going to satisfy the integrity constraint, right? Therefore whenever you are going to use the default value, our database management system should always see that this default value will never be deleted, right? If that is deleted, you will never be able to satisfy the integrity constraint. The reason is Whenever something is deleted, you are going to make it as 3, and if 3 itself is not present there, how can you say that referential integrity is maintained? Got it? Therefore, it is the responsibility of the software to check that whenever you have given something as default, it should never be deleted, right? In case if you want to delete it, just update this first. Just change the default to some other number and then you delete 3. Let us say you want to delete this one. You want to delete 3. Then what you should do is change it here first and then you delete there. Got it? Okay. Now let's say this one. How does this one work? Update department, set department ID equal to 8, where department ID equal to 3. Which means if this one, if you try to make it as 8, then who will get affected? Okay, so you are not supposed to do this. The reason is, here what you are trying to do is 3 you have already maintained as default, and now you are going to change that to 8. Right? Now what will happen is, either whoever is depending on department number 3 are going to get affected here, or later if you try to change someone else, some department number, if you try to delete it, then automatically for that particular employee the default will show as 3, but 3 will not be present there. Therefore you should not either delete or update 3 when it is being used as a default. Therefore this particular statement should not be allowed by the software. You should say that you are not supposed to do this action because 3 is already used as the default value. Got it? Okay. And next one is set cascade. Now the same way, so department ID number references department ID, on delete set cascade, on update set cascade. So this is how you are going to write this statement if you want to enable this feature. Okay. Now let's say an example. Delete from department where department ID equal to 4. So what is the meaning of it is, if you are going to delete this one, delete from department table where department ID equal to 4, if you delete this one, cascade means the same action whatever you have done here should propagate to the other table as well, right? So that is called as cascading. So if you delete it here, all the employees who are depending on this department should also be deleted, which means the action taken here will be the employee who is present in department number 4 will be deleted. Got it? Now let's say update department set department, update department set department ID equal to 9 where department ID equal to 5, which means here wherever it was 5 you are now making it as 9. Now what did we say? It has to propagate. So what is the change done here? Updation, right? Therefore you have to update all 5s here as well, which means you have to take this entry. Why this entry? Because this is what is referring to the 5 there. Now you apply updation here as well. Got it? So that is how you are going to see that whenever the referential integrity is going to fail, either because of deletion or updation, we are trying to do something, right? Either set null or set default or set cascade, and still maintain the referential integrity, right? By now if you see this, whatever actions we did there, because of those actions, whatever values you have here will all be present here, otherwise they will not appear here, which means after doing all this, still the referential integrity is maintained. Now if you observe this, I have paired up on delete set null and on update set null. It is not necessary that you have to mention both of them. You can mention any one of them if you don't want the other behavior to be there, or you can also use a combination of this, which means you can say on delete set null and maybe on update set cascade. That is also valid, right? Now depending on what you write there, the particular action will be triggered whenever you either delete or update, right? So you can use any combination of this, and even if you forget to apply these constraints while creating the table, later also you can apply them. Got it? Okay, so this is all about referential constraints.